Okay, so today we're looking at standard form. Okay, standard form is just another way to write a linear equation. So far, we've been working with slope-intercept form. Okay, and it's named this because in it you can identify the slope and you can identify the intercept. That's why it's named slope-intercept form. Other times it's written, and you'll see this a lot in grade 10, in standard form, which is down here. Now, don't worry about what A, B, and C are. Those are just numbers, a constant and a couple coefficients. So the A, B, and C are just placeholders for where numbers will go. So AX plus BY equals C. But as you write this, there's a couple rules. And the rules are A, B, and C are integers, not fractions. So they can't be fractions. And A must be positive. Okay, so you can't have a negative number in front of your X. And it's always written X, then Y, then C. Okay, so no fractions and all positive are the two rules we have here. Now, I wrote down some steps here that you may have to follow all the way through all the time. Sometimes you only have to follow the first two. Okay, so first step, rearrange. So all variables are on one side and the constant goes the other side. I personally like rearranging it so I have a positive X. You don't have to, but just know if you don't have a positive X, you're going to have to divide by a negative at the end. Okay? So arrange your equation so X is first, then Y. If the coefficient in front of the X is negative, divide everything by -1. So this will flip all signs opposite. Okay? If there is a fraction, create common denominator between all numbers. Once you have a common denominator, you erase them. So let's do it this one. And I'll do this one both two ways. So y equals 2x plus 5. So it's in slope-intercept form. Now we're going to rearrange it. I'll write it over here so when we do it the second time. That always happens first time I touch it. Y equals 2x plus 5. So I like to keep the x as positive. So that means I'm going to bring this y over to get all the variables to one side. And it's a positive over there, so it's going to be a negative over here. And then I'm going to move my constant over the other side. So that's going to be -5. Now, if you don't like the way this looks, because it doesn't look like what we had up top, you can flip it, but don't change the signs. We're just flipping what side it appears on our page. We're not actually rearranging it. Now, this one here is all done. And I could state my A is 2, my B is negative. Where did that go? Oh, shoot, I wrote down the wrong thing here. That is -y. So my B is actually -1, and my C value is -5. So that'd be my values for A, B, and C for this equation. Now, if you wanted to leave that 5 there, you could bring the 2 over. So that would be y minus 2x equals 5. Now, if you remember, I want the x, the lead. I want the x in front. So it'd be -2x plus y equals 5. But one of the rules here is I can't have a negative. So I'm going to divide everything by -1 to make that positive. Because how you make that positive, just divide it by a negative. A negative divided by a negative equals a positive. But this will also switch the sign of everything else. So if it was positive before, you divide it by negative, it becomes negative. Therefore, my answer is this. the exact same as the other one. So no matter which way you do it, you're still going to get the same answer. All right? So let's go take a look at this one here. So y equals negative 2 over 3 x plus 4. All right, so I need my variables on one side, my constant on the opposite side. Now this is negative here, so that means I can move it over, okay, which will make that positive how I want it. So I get 2 over 3 x plus y equals 4. Now, I have a positive x, which is good, but I also have a fraction, and I'm not allowed fractions. So what I'm going to do is let's make a common denominator. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make these have a denominator of a 1. Now how do I get a denominator of 3 here? So I'm going to times this by 3. If I times the bottom by 3, I have to multiply the top by 3. And do the same thing over here. So then it's going to end up as 2 over 3x plus 3y over 3 equals 12 over 3. Then, once I have a common denominator, as we did before, we're going to get rid of them, which is going to leave me with 2x plus 3y equals 12, which is going to end up where a equals 2, b equals 3, and c equals 12. Now here's the hardest one, it looks like. This one looks tough. Let's just follow the same steps we did before. Well, we need variables on one side. So the x is positive right now. So I like having the x positive, so I'm going to move this over. So I end up getting 3 over 7x, and it's going to be minus y. Then let's move this way. It's a negative on this side, so it's going to become a positive. Now I'm going to leave it like this. Now we need a common denominator. Since I have fractions, I'm not allowed to have fractions. So what's a common denominator? Now, if you don't know how to get your common denominator, I could write it in my multiples here of 7 and 6. So I go 12, 18, 24, what's after that? 30, 36, 42. I could write out my other ones. 14 doesn't match. 21 doesn't match. 28 doesn't match. 35 doesn't match. What's that? 42. Oh, there, I have a pair right here. Boom. I have a pair. There's my first match. So 42 is going to be my common denominator. So to get 42 on this side with a 6, I have to multiply this by 7. What I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. I have to multiply this by 6. 7 times 6 equals 42. Now, I got a 1 down there. So how do I get that 1 to 42? Well, I times it by 42. So therefore, I'm going to get 35, that should over 42 equals 18 over 42x minus 42 over 42y. Then once I have this, I can get rid of my denominators. So 35 equals 18x minus 42y. Now, the a is the number in front of the x, so that's 18. The b is the number in front of the y, so that's negative 42. And my c is 35. So that's the hardest question you'll get, right? Still same steps. Bring your variables to one side. I like to bring it so my x is positive, therefore I don't have to divide by -1. It just takes away a step, right? Then I realize I have a fraction, create a common denominator. Then once I have that common denominator, I just erase it, and away we go. Now it could ask you to go the other way. I could ask you to go from standard to slope-intercept form. Okay, so let's remember what slope-intercept form looks like. Slope-intercept looks like this. So the big thing here is I need my y all by itself, and I need the number in front of it to be 1. So let's do that first. Let's get the y all by itself. So I'm going to move this over there. So I have 3y equals, now I like to put my x in front just because I like it. So 2x, it was a positive 2 on this side, is going to become a minus 2x on this side, and the 6 is already over there, so I'm not going to change it. Now, what's in front of the y right now? I have a 3. Well, it has a 1, so let's make it a 1. So if I divide this by 3, I'll get 1. If I divide that by 3, I have to divide this by 3 and this by 3. So I get y equals -2 over 3x plus 2. If I wanted to identify my slope and my y-intercept, it'd be 2 and -2 over 3. So I think I gave you a bunch of questions on that. Let me take a real quick look, see how many questions I gave you. Probably way too many. So I gave you a good handful of questions. Now, if you have it down pat, do a minimum of 4 and 2. But if you make a mistake, you got to keep going. Okay, and there's some interesting ones I gave there as well. Okay, have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.